For decades, we've been told that the Great Pyramids were built with nothing but blood, sweat, and ramps. But when you look at the evidence, machined level flatness within a fraction of a millimeter and 1,200-ton monoliths abandoned in quarries.
For thousands of years, people around the world have wondered how ancient Egypt built the Great Pyramid. With such incredible precision, massive stone blocks weighing several tons were moved across the desert long before modern machines existed. But now, a new study is making a shocking claim that could completely change what people believe about the pyramid's construction. The discovery suggests the builders may have used a method far more advanced and unexpected than anyone imagined. So, what exactly did this new study uncover? And why are historians and archaeologists arguing so fiercely about it? Mystery behind the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid of Giza remains one of the most astonishing structures ever created by human hands. Built during ancient Egypt's Old Kingdom period, the pyramid stretched about 755 feet along each side of its square base and originally stood close to 481 feet tall before losing some of its outer casing stones over time. Even today, the structure towers over the desert landscape and continues to amaze engineers, historians, and archaeologists around the world. One of the greatest mysteries surrounding the pyramid has always been the enormous amount of material used to build it. The structure contains around 2.3 million stone blocks. Many of these blocks weighed several tons, while some of the larger stones used in special chambers weighed more than 60 tons each. Ancient workers had to cut these stones from quarries, transport them across long distances, raise them high into the air, and position them with remarkable accuracy. They achieved all of this without steel cranes, motorized vehicles, or modern construction tools. The speed of construction has made the mystery even more impressive. Historians believe the Great Pyramid was completed in less than 30 years, which means workers had to place massive numbers of blocks almost continuously. For decades, experts tried to understand how this could have been possible. Many earlier theories suggested that workers used huge external ramps built around the outside of the pyramid. However, those ideas created major problems. Massive external ramps would have required enormous amounts of extra building material, and some versions of these ramps would have become too steep or unstable as the pyramid grew taller. To investigate the problem further, computer scientists developed a highly detailed 3D simulation showing how the pyramid might have been constructed using a different method. His model proposed an integrated edge ramp system, sometimes shortened to IER. Instead of relying mainly on giant ramps outside the pyramid, this idea suggested that the builders created a concealed ramp built directly into the pyramid's outer layers. According to the model, workers intentionally left open sections within the pyramid's outer structure as construction moved upward. These open spaces acted as pathways where laborers could drag stone blocks higher and higher along a rising route that wrapped around the pyramid. As new layers were added, earlier sections of the ramp were filled in and sealed behind finished stonework. Because these pathways were later covered up, almost no obvious signs of them remained visible after the pyramid was completed. The proposed design created a kind of spiral movement around the pyramid as workers climbed upward with materials. Earlier ramp theories had suggested similar ideas, but Roig's model attempted to solve several engineering problems that older theories could not fully explain. One major advantage of the hidden ramp system was that it avoided blocking ongoing construction work. External ramps could easily interfere with workers trying to place stones accurately on the pyramid's outer surface, especially near the upper sections. The integrated ramp system reduced these obstacles while also limiting the amount of extra construction material needed. The model also examined whether such a system could realistically fit the accepted timeline for the pyramid's construction. According to the simulation, workers using this method could have placed stone blocks every 4 to 6 minutes under ideal working conditions. When this pace was extended across the entire project, the calculations suggested the pyramid itself could have been structurally completed within roughly 14 to 21 years. However, The process involved much more than simply stacking stones. Workers also needed time to quarry the blocks, transport them from distant locations, organize labor crews, and take breaks during the demanding work. When these real-life factors were included, the estimated construction period increased to somewhere between 20 and 27 years. Even with these added delays, the timeline still matched the traditional estimates historians have long accepted for the pyramid's completion. Another interesting part of the model involved strange gaps and unusual wear patterns found inside parts of the pyramid. Some unexplained spaces within the structure may not have been accidents or unfinished areas at all. According to the theory, these spaces could have been intentionally left open during construction, so workers could move materials through the hidden ramp system. Areas showing heavier wear may have been locations where workers and sledges repeatedly passed while carrying massive stone blocks. Why was the pyramid built? Was it for a religious purpose? Let's find out. Purpose of the pyramid. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built as the burial place of the pharaoh Khufu, and even today, it still contains his large granite coffin, known as a sarcophagus. Like many important tombs built for powerful people in ancient Egypt, the Great Pyramid had several important purposes that went beyond simply holding a body. One of its main purposes was to protect the body of the dead ruler and keep it safe for eternity. Ancient Egyptians believed that the body needed to remain intact so the person could continue life after death. The pyramid was also a strong symbol of the ruler's power and the high status of his family. Building such a massive structure showed everyone how important Khufu was during his lifetime and even after his death. Another purpose of the pyramid was to preserve the dead ruler's place in society. Even after death, a king was still seen as someone who held authority and influence. The pyramid helped maintain that idea by keeping his memory alive and honored. It also served as a sacred place where offerings such as food, drinks, and other gifts could be brought to support the dead in the afterlife. Ancient writings connected to Egyptian burial beliefs also show how seriously death and tomb preparation were treated. One inscription encourages people to prepare a well-furnished tomb in the western land of the dead. It explains that death should not be feared and that life remains valuable. It also describes the tomb as a house of the dead that still represents life in another form. In ancient Egypt, social class and status were extremely important, and this was clearly shown in how people were buried. Kings and queens were given enormous pyramid tombs, while ordinary people and lower-ranking officials were buried in much smaller structures called mastabas. The size and design of a tomb depended on the person's rank and position in society. Even the materials used and the workers who built the tomb were controlled by the king. Official rules determined how large a tomb could be and what kind of design it could have. The Great Pyramid itself is unusual because its inner chambers do not contain writings or decorations. This is different from many later Egyptian tombs, especially those built during the 4th to 5th dynasties, where walls were often covered in inscriptions. However, there are some simple markings left behind by the workers who built the pyramid, including graffiti that mentions Khufu's name. The pyramid was built around 2600 BC, which is more than 200 years before Egyptians began regularly writing texts inside pyramid. The pyramid was part of a larger complex that included 2 temples. These temples were richly decorated and contained many carved images and inscriptions. One of them, the Pyramid Temple, was connected to the said festival, a major celebration marking the king's 30th year of rule. Scenes from this temple show Khufu along with priests, officials, and workers performing religious rituals. The second temple, located in the valley, has not been fully excavated, but reused stones found later show images of ships and representations of Khufu's estate. These estates had names that honored the king. However, one writer, al-Makrizi, who lived between 1364 and 1442, reported tales of 3 wrapped bodies, a coffin filled with gold, and even a warrior buried in golden armor, holding a sword of great value, along with a ruby said to be as large as an egg. Who is the pyramid attributed to, and why was it attributed? Let's take a closer look. Attribution of the pyramid to Khufu. Historically, the building of the Great Pyramid of Giza was linked to the pharaoh Khufu. This idea mainly came from ancient writers such as Herodotus and Diodorus Siculus. During the Middle Ages, different figures were also wrongly said to have built the pyramid. These included Joseph, Genesis, from the Book of Genesis, Nimrod, and a legendary ruler known as Saurid ibn Salhuk. In the year 1837, 4 hidden rooms above the king's chamber were discovered after digging work. These rooms had been sealed and could not be reached before. Inside them were red painted writings. The workers who built the pyramid had left marks on the stone blocks, often writing the names of their work groups. Some of these group names included references to the king, such as the gang. The white crown of Khufu is strong. The name Khufu appeared many times in these markings. Another similar marking was found by Georges Goyon on an outer stone of the 4th layer of the pyramid. These writings are similar to those found in other places linked to Khufu, such as the alabaster quarry at Hatnub and the harbor at Wadi al-Jarf. Similar markings are also found in pyramids built for other kings. During the 20th century, the burial areas around the pyramid were studied. Family members and high officials of Khufu were buried in the East Field and West Field near the pyramid. These included wives, children, and important officials such as Hemiunu, Ankaf, and the burial items of Hetepheres I, who was Khufu's mother. It was a common tradition in ancient Egypt for close family and trusted officials to be buried near the king they served. These burial areas were used and expanded until the 6th dynasty. After that, they were used less often. The oldest royal name found on seal marks is Khufu, while the latest belongs to Pepi II. Workers also left graffiti on some tombstones, including the name Medjedu, which was another name for Khufu, found on a tomb belonging to a possible grandson of Khufu. Some writings inside tomb chapels also mention Khufu or his pyramid. For example, one inscription says that a woman's mother was the daughter of King Khufu. Many titles also refer to Khufu, such as officials called overseers of the pyramid city of Akhet Khufu, or priests serving his pyramid. Some people even had Khufu's name as part of their own names. The earliest king mentioned in this way at Giza is Snefru, who was Khufu's father. In 1936, excavations uncovered a stone inscription of Amenhotep II near the Great Sphinx. It shows that even in the New Kingdom, people still believed the 2 large pyramids belonged to Khufu and Khafra. The inscription describes the king visiting the Sphinx area and admiring the monuments of Khufu and Khafra. In 1954, 2 boat pits were found at the south side of the pyramid, one containing the famous Khufu ship. Many stones covering the pits had the name of Jedefre written on them. He was Khufu's son and successor, and likely helped with the burial. A second boat pit was studied later, and many markings were found, including repeated names of Khufu and Jedefre, along with dates, measurements, and construction notes written in red and black ink. In 2013, a set of ancient papyri called the Diary of Merer was discovered at Wadi al-Jarf. It describes how limestone blocks were transported from Tura to the pyramid site. The text refers many times to the pyramid by its ancient name, Akhet Khufu. It also describes delivery points such as Shi Akhet Khufu, meaning the pool of the pyramid, and Ro She Khufu, meaning the entrance to the pool. These operations were overseen by Ankaf, who was Khufu's half-brother, and a high official in charge of major building work. How old is the pyramid? What dating methods were used? Let's find out. Age of the pyramid. The Great Pyramid is generally considered to be about 4,600 years old, based on 2 main methods. The first method links it indirectly to Pharaoh Khufu, using archaeological finds and written records to place him in time and, by extension, date the pyramid to his reign. The second method is more direct and uses radiocarbon dating of organic remains found in the pyramid, including material trapped in its mortar. In the past, the pyramid's age was estimated mainly by connecting it to Khufu alone. This meant that dating the pyramid depended on dating Khufu and the 4th dynasty. Most modern estimates place Khufu and the construction of his pyramid between about 2700 BC and 2500 BC. A large amount of mortar was used during the building of the Great Pyramid. During its preparation, ash from fires became mixed into the mortar. This organic material can be removed and tested using radiocarbon dating. In 1984 and 1995, 46 mortar samples were collected, carefully chosen to ensure they were original to the structure and not added later. After calibration, the results gave a range of 2871 BC to 2604 BC. This older result is thought to be affected by the old wood problem, where the dated material is older than the time it was actually used. A later review of the data suggested a construction date between 2620 BC and 2484 BC, based on the younger samples. In 1872, Wayneman Dixon opened 2 blocked air shafts in the Queen's Chamber by cutting into the stone walls. Inside, several objects were found, including a piece of cedar wood. This wood later came into the possession of James Grant and was eventually donated to the Museum of Aberdeen in 1946. Over time, it broke into fragments and was misplaced in storage, but it was rediscovered in 2020. Radiocarbon testing showed it dated between 3341 BC and 3094 BC, which is more than 500 years older than Khufu's time. Abir Eladani suggested that the wood may have come from the inner part of an old tree, or may have been reused many years before being placed in the pyramid. Around 450 BC, Herodotus wrote that the Great Pyramid was built by Cheops, which is the Greek form of Khufu, but he incorrectly placed Khufu's reign after the Ramesside period. About 200 years later, Manetho created a list of Egyptian kings divided into dynasties and correctly placed Khufu in the 4th dynasty. However, changes in pronunciation and translation over time caused the name Cheops to appear in different forms, such as Sufis. In 1646, Thomas Greaves tried to estimate the pyramid's age but found the historical records confusing and inconsistent. Because he did not recognize Khufu in Manetho's list, he relied heavily on Herodotus's inaccurate account. By adding together reign lengths from these sources, he estimated Khufu's reign began around 1266 BC. About 200 years later, improved records such as the Turin, Abydos, and Karnak king lists helped correct many gaps in Egyptian chronology. In 1837, Khufu's name was found inside the pyramid's relieving chambers, confirming that Cheops and Sufis referred to the same ruler. This helped firmly place the pyramid in the 4th dynasty. However, scholars still disagreed widely on the exact date, with estimates ranging roughly from 4000 BC to 2000 BC, depending on methods and interpretations. How was the pyramid preserved? Was it left open or closed? Let's find out. Casing of the Great Pyramid. When the Great Pyramid was finished, it was covered completely in fine white limestone. Carefully shaped stone blocks were placed in neat horizontal rows and fitted tightly together using mortar. The outer faces of these stones were cut at an angle and then smoothed to a very high finish. Evidence from unfinished casing blocks at the pyramids of Menkaure and Henutsen at Giza shows that the visible faces were often smoothed only after the stones had been placed in position. Chiseled marks helped builders line the blocks up correctly and showed where extra stones still needed to be cut away. The height of these horizontal layers was not the same throughout the pyramid. The lowest layers that still remain today are the tallest, with the very first layer reaching about 1.49 meters. As the pyramid rises, the layers become smaller, with many near the top just over 1 royal cubit, about 0.5 meters high. These upper stones often weighed around 500 kilograms. The pattern is uneven, with layer sizes generally getting smaller as the pyramid rises. but then increasing again at certain points. Behind the outer casing were backing stones that helped support it. Unlike the rough core blocks, these backing stones were also carefully shaped and fixed to the casing with mortar. Today, much of what remains visible on the pyramid comes from these internal stones, because most of the outer casing was removed long ago. Earthquakes in northern Egypt damaged the structure over time, and many casing stones were taken away. In 1356, the Bahri Sultan Nasir ad-Din al-Hassan is reported to have reused many of these stones in building projects in Cairo. Analysis of the mortar shows it contains organic material, mainly charcoal. Radiocarbon dating of these materials gives dates between 2871 BC and 2604 BC. It is thought that the mortar helped builders place the stones more precisely by creating a level surface for them to sit on. In 1880, Flinders Petrie observed that all four sides of the pyramid appear slightly curved inward, and that each side has a faint groove running down its center. He thought this might be due to thicker casing in some areas. At certain times of day, shadows and lighting can make the sides look split, which led to the idea that the pyramid might have 8 sides. So, what do you think about the recent study of the Egyptian Great Pyramid? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.